Peter from the Metacartel DAO, and for those who don't know, I was the first ever person to be rejected from Moloch DAO, and essentially why that was is because like Moloch at that time was still fairly early on, and because of that taking in 10 ETH members introduced a lot of overhead apparently. Right, and essentially, so the previous members of Moloch, were around 100 ETH, 50 ETH, and that was fine, right? So essentially, how Metacartel DAO works, right, really nicely presented by Cassandra here, we're a complete redeployment. We call it a fork, but it's really just the cool name to call it, right? We use the exact same settings, except maybe we have a different front end, right? Which we kind of develop ourselves with various UX improvements. But essentially, Metacartel DAO is, was this DAO that was born out of the Metacartel community, right? And essentially when I was kicked, I had this chat with Cassandra and Amin in this video call. They were like, why don't you fork, Moloch DAO, right? And launch your own. And basically, Metacartel, the Metacartel community grew from last year, right? Started last year. It was initially around meta transactions, right? And basically, we solved that problem, and we moved on to other challenges, like how to get more people building dApps, right? And previously, in the last two to 3 months before this happened, right? The Moloch rejection, the Metacartel was thinking about how to actually build a dApp incubator, right? And launch more dApps in the ecosystem. So when this kind of opportunity and this meme presented itself, it was kind of funny, fuck it, let's launch our own DAO, right? And yeah, so Metacartel is a DAO that funds application layer experimentation. We're insanely focused on experimenting with composability and building crypto products that bring value to crypto people, right? We're not very focused on people outside of crypto. We don't have the funds to actually tackle such a problem and execute execute projects that do kind of bring value to people outside. And also Metacartel has a really strong community within the Ethereum community, and we want to leverage that, right? We're really great at memeing and marketing. We can really push projects in the ecosystem, and we see that as a strength, right? And we want to play around that, at least initially, right? So yeah, and that's a dancing chili, and that might perplex you if you don't have the context, right? Yeah, so essentially, Metacartel is a Moloch fork that's focused on the application layer. We have around 900 ETH inside the DAO right now, and we have had we've actually processed 64 proposals for funding, right? Most of it in a centralized manner. So essentially, before we launched the actual DAO, basically we had the first DAO meeting early July, right? We had the meeting on the 2nd of July, and it took us about a month to actually coordinate all the funds, right, from a soft pledge state and into to get the funds onboarded into the contract, right? So we deployed the Metacartel DAO contract around early June, and that took us a whole month to kind of get around 600, 700 ETH into the DAO itself, right? And before we launched the contract, we actually spent a bit of time actually collecting proposals in a centralized grant process, right? Mainly because we realized that Moloch while it had initial projects it was funding, right? I was told by Amin that basically that they had some issues finding follow-up projects to fund, right? So I was like, okay, what's the most efficient way to kind of find and source some projects, right? And we collected them, and we actually processed around 30 grant applications that were processed through this grant application form, that was pre-launch through the DAO members, right? We created a huge doc, and we just went through them and whitelisted ones that we wanted to explore further, right? That we wanted to fund, and then we went through 11 proposals, right? We processed and discussed 11 funding proposals through our forum that was submitted through that channel, and we funded 4 proposals so far, just around 6 to 8K, and we've onboarded around 6 new DAO memberships, right? Averaging around 300 ETH. In the last month, and this is our first month of just operation, right? And yeah, I think one of the things that hit me right from the beginning was that DAO's a fucking operational challenge. They're actually really hard to operate, build, and manage. It's an organization, right? Except you have less money, less resources, less commitment, right? And I think the only reason why we're in that position, right, in that position is because DAOs are like amazing for capital coordination, right? They do capital, like DAOs are probably 10x better than any other form of capital coordination we have, right? That we can work with. And Metacartel DAO, Moloch DAO probably wouldn't exist without actually on-chain value, and that seamless, coordination, right? So yeah, they're actually really hard to coordinate. Lots of operational challenges around DAOs that are, I basically encountered like in the first month, right, in the first meetings that I never really heard anyone else talk about. Like, how do you communicate? How do you host discussions? How do you actually where do you communicate all of this knowledge, right? How do you how do you find that consensus? It's like, I don't think we found best practices yet, right? Or even I'm only developing my practices, right? Yeah, DAOs can be pretty great, as well, right? In that regards, DAOs are really wise. We realized we were making very reasonable judgments. We were actually sourcing a lot of technical knowledge and operational knowledge from a wide range of people. It was super valuable. That was unexpected, and it was also unexpectedly socially decentralized. I thought I had a lot more people in my pocket, but that wasn't the case. And I felt like that was a really the DAO. I wouldn't be surprised in 2 months if we see a hackathon pay a DAO to judge projects, right? Or do some other sort of service. A DAO isn't just coordination funds; it's coordination people, right? And then you can actually leverage that initial coordination people to kind of run and build other things, right? Yeah, next experiments, we want to basically play reputation. We're starting to issue NFTs out for tasks that are done within the DAO, attending a meeting, doing something good, finding a referral and bringing new members in. We're looking to implement, a for-profit legal entity around the DAO so we can actually invest into projects and make money and be sustainable, right? Right now, it's just pure, there's no value capture mechanism, right? And yeah, the other project we're working on is incubation of a project from idea concept to MVP to launch. Yeah.
Thanks so much. Questions? Can you maybe show your forum? I saw a nice
Yeah, exactly. So this is the forum that we run everything from, right? So this is the forum that we run everything from. We basically during the second meeting of the DAO, right? We started discussing what we should fund and how we should fund it. What should we fund? How do we get better at funding it? There were so many threads of discussion that I had really no clue how to coordinate that in a single Telegram group, right? So basically we set up a forum, right? A discourse forum. And we just said, fuck it, let's just throw everything on that, let people coordinate, let discussions flourish. And it kind of worked. So we have categories, so proposals, where you can see basically what's in review, what's declined, what's funded, and anyone can actually come in and do due diligence actually. Obviously we're yet to set we're yet to solidify our funding criteria, right? But you can actually hypothetically, DAO members, when it scales up, you can actually do open, transparent due diligence. Obviously, to a certain extent, that's the trade-off of speed, right? And you probably want to protect against that. Metacartel is all about kind of speed and execution. We don't want to talk about and play around with governance, right? We ideally do touch governance very little. That's a sticky topic, and we want to do stuff, right? We don't want to plan out and do mind maps and brainstorm for weeks on end. We just want to make a decision, commit, and disagree, right? Yeah, this is our forum. There's been interesting things. Yeah, DAO processes, just plenty discussion on how to improve the DAO, right? And anyone can actually come in our forums, suggest things, and engage, discuss. We also have a public Discord a Discord chat, right, where it's half public, half private, right, where the DAO members are on, and anyone can come in and engage and just chat, right? And obviously, right now we're less concerned about membership and funds in the DAO. We're more focused on executing, right? That's really the main risk of DAOs, in my opinion. If you have a coordinated need, I think the funds will come. It's really about actually whether you can do something with those funds, right? Classic, operational challenge there.
So at this point, there's several DAO platforms to choose from. What made you choose Moloch DAO to fork from rather than the others?
Basically, Moloch DAO works. It coordinated, around 400K, and it needed the coordination that I wanted. And I had James Young basically in the Metacartel, almost right-hand man, right? And he backed me to deploy and help me walk me through all of that, right? And I was like, let's do it. And I knew that that's exactly what I needed. I didn't need anything complex. I didn't need to think. I don't want to think, right? I mean, like obviously I know about the other frameworks, but this just works. And yeah, like obviously like the thing is a big factor is like the rage quit option, right? It's a fact that people can commit and leave anytime, permissionlessly, right?
I think Metacartel are different from Malak as in like you already have a work group community. And at some point decided that, oh, let's transform this community to a DAO. And how do you make that decision? And do you think like what recommendation would you give to other communities who are considering transferring? Like why would you do it or why not?
Right. So I guess like Metacartel is like has like over like 20 something Telegram group chats and like around 400 or 500 people like uniquely in those. Like if you're in Metacartel, your chat group chats, you're at least a part of like 2 to 4, right? And I guess how to do that. I think it was. I have no clue to. That's a good question to be honest. I don't have an answer to that. I think the important thing was to communicate. Like a lot of people in Metacartel don't know what Metacartel is, and a lot of people don't know what the DAO is, and they don't know how it's repositioned, right? And like I'm trying to do my best right now and like getting everyone to focus back like and understand what the DAO is about and orientate everyone towards it, right? Like kind of onboarding people to the Discord channels instead, because I do want to like 20 plus Telegram chats is like impossible to manage. Like when you're trying to do a DAO now. Yeah.
Okay, thanks so much.